This is the Creative Soulpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Demas. Let's go. Okay, my friend, welcome back to the Creative Soulpreneur Podcast. Got a friend with me today. We were chatting before we started, and it was like, you know what? We need to press record. And so I did. Holly Bertone, welcome to the show.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for having me on the show. This is awesome.
Do you know that I, in high school, I don't think I've ever told you this, I had a crush on a guy whose last name was Bertone.
Aw, that's such a rare name, too.
I know. If you're out there listening, Matt Bertone, I still have a crush on you.
Aw, that's so sweet.
He was like the cool guy. He was like, like he kind of reminded me of like U2. He had that like sort of vibe. He was, anyway. Welcome to the show, Holly Bertone.
Thank you, Nick. I'm excited to be here.
So you've got an incredible story. And I think that I'd be remiss if I didn't have you share a bit of your story with my audience, because I think it so informs who you are and the subject that we're going to talk about today. So can you back up for the audience? Because I know your story clearly, but can you back up for the audience and share a bit about your journey from where you were to this woman of incredible gratitude now?
Aw, thank you, Nick. Yeah, and I love sharing my story because I think it is proof that you can have the life of your dreams regardless of what you're going through. And I do want to say right at the very beginning that I'm going to sound very positive, and I'm going to talk a lot about gratitude, and I'm going to talk a lot about being knee deep in adversity. And that might trigger you a little bit. And I acknowledge that. And I just want to say, if you are feeling it, just keep listening and promise me you keep an open mind. So I always like to start with that. But yeah, my journey actually begins before everything came crashing down, because I was that girl. I was the one I was the chief of staff for one of those 3-letter federal government agencies that they make TV shows about. It was a big deal. I raced mountain bike, I raced Xterra triathlons, which are off-road triathlons. And then I actually raced on the Marine Corps, the Quantico Marine Corps mountain bike team. I was the only civilian. I took boxing classes and Muay Thai lessons. I traveled all over the world. I drank margaritas with my girlfriends. Like, it was the perfect life. And I don't think as a 30-something single female, it could not have been any more of a perfect life. And then on my 39th birthday, I got the phone call. And I was actually commuting home. I was living in Alexandria, Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. And a doctor from my doctor's office called, and he says, Holly, I've got some news for you. The test results came back. And I'm sorry to let you know that you have breast cancer. But don't worry, it's the good kind. You're going to need to get a surgeon and have some surgery. Good luck.
Wow.
And that was the call. Side note, there's no good kind of.
I was going to ask.
I
sat there thinking, what is the good kind? I didn't know there was a good kind. What does that even mean?
There's not. So the pathology, my tumor was actually small, slow, and lazy. I was always an overachiever, so I was actually excited for once in my life that something about me was lazy. It's good to have a small and lazy tumor, but I would not call it the good kind of cancer. But I ended up going through surgery, chemo, radiation, so the traditional round of treatment. But then what happened is that I never got better. And I kept getting, like, health just kept getting worse and worse. And I ended up a year later being diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune condition. And my doctor gave me some medicine, and I was like, woohoo, I'm going to get better. But that didn't happen. And then years go by, and the debilitating chronic fatigue that I was dealing with just kept getting worse and worse and worse, to the point in 2017 I was forced to resign from my dream job. And that left me at rock bottom number 3 with my health. That left me without a source of identity as a successful career woman. That left me without a source of identity as a wife who could barely function and take care of her home and her husband, as a stepmother who could barely function and take care of her stepchild. It was the worst of the rock bottoms, because I felt like an absolute failure. I felt like my body has completely betrayed me, to the point of, this is it. It is never going to get better. My life is going to suck for every single day for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's really intense. Um, I think the listeners who have watched my film, Invisible, know that my mother's story is quite similar in that
Yours, that
she was,
film is so beautiful. Oh my
uh,
goodness.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, which then triggered her fibromyalgia, which then led to her needing to leave her job at the bank, to her not being able to manage the household, to years and years and years of struggle. So, how did you get out of it? How did you move through this?
There was a lot of marinating in my own misery. I am
Mm.
not going to lie. It was bad. But growing up, speaking of moms, growing up every single day, my mother had her own health challenges. And every single day, I heard her say the phrase, it builds fortitude. And I always thought, like, okay, I don't really know what that means. But going through my health challenges, I'm like, okay, it builds fortitude. It's making sense now. And I thought that it meant just like staying strong, powering through, and I'm going to stay strong, and I'm going to stay positive, and, just power through this. But I realized, and this was after she had passed. So I was only allowed to ask spirit. I was not allowed to ask her in person, um, what the it means, because that staying strong, this it builds fortitude, it didn't make sense. Like, it's got to be something else. And what I realized is that it was her grateful heart. It was her showing up every single day of her life and making the most of it, regardless of how she felt. It was her loving and giving with every single fiber in her body, regardless of how she felt. And not from a place of, oh, I'm staying strong and I'm staying positive, but from a place of just gentle love and compassion and gratitude and giving. And that's when I realized that I can make a decision. I can choose to wallow in my misery, or I can choose to do something about this. And in 2018, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take radical responsibility for my health and my life. And that's when everything changed.
That's really incredible, because when you're in that spiral, or that circle of wallowing, it can be really difficult, especially after years and years. It can be really difficult to get out. So
It was
what
my
what
entire identity.
yeah, it becomes an identity. When I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, I suddenly had a new identity. And it was, spoiler alert, I was diagnosed if you haven't watched the film. And it was hard for me to take that identity. And then I carried it for a bit. And then I realized I didn't want that identity, to be perfectly honest. So how did you, like, what in you though? What deep within you was like, not only am I going to make this change, but I'm going to really do it. Like, what, how did you draw into that well?
It was really just making a decision. I'm like,
Mm.
I can't live like this. I'm too young to be this miserable, to be this broken, to have a non existent life for the rest of my life. And all it was a decision. I mean, angels didn't fly. I didn't, you know,
It wasn't like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Snow White didn't come. Like, you
no,
just made this
it was just,
decision.
It was a decision.
And I think that's really
And
it, right? It's a
yeah,
decision and a choice.
yes.
You made
And
the choice.
and you know what was interesting, because when I made that decision, I had no clue what it meant. Like I had no clue what that even. I was like, I know I need to do something to get better. I don't know what that is. And I didn't know anything about functional medicine at that point. But what had happened was and I actually was gluten free at that point, but that was about it. But what had happened was I had two individuals within a month come into my life. And one was a functional chiropractor who we worked together weekly on the physical healing. And the other one was an energy coach, and we worked together on the emotional and the spiritual healing. And
So,
together, shazam,
so dare I say then that yes, actually there were angels that came
there were angels that came. Yes. Yes.
in a different form. Maybe it wasn't whoa, whoa, or Snow White, but there were angels that showed up in your life that presented, that were the guide for you
Yes.
to make the shift, that gave you the possibility and the tools, because
Right.
it's really about a toolkit, right? It's tools.
Because I had really worked on like food and, eliminating certain foods and being gluten free and things like that, but it hadn't moved the needle. So that's part of the reason why I gave up, because I was like, well, I tried everything they tell you to do. I did some acupuncture, I did some coffee enemas, stuck a tube of coffee up my butt, like, woohoo, that's fun. Got in the infrared sauna. Like I was doing this stuff, but I'm like, nothing's working. Why is nothing working? And I realized that your healing is not just the physical, it's the emotional,
Yeah.
it's the spiritual, it's all of the other stuff that's so much more important. And it is getting your body to a place where it's not inflamed anymore, and not realizing how much stress that my disease had put on my body on top of all of the other stress and the trauma and the emotions and the everything. And I was one big toxic soup. Like I actually went to my chiropractor and I said, this is going to sound really weird, but I feel like I'm stuck. I just feel like my body is stuck and it's not moving. And he just kind of smiled at me and he goes, are you up for this? Because it's going to be a hard journey. I was like, I'm up. I want to get better.
Mm.
So yeah, it was getting everything moving, not just my physical health, but my emotional and my spiritual, just all pieces of it.
And so you did. You did
Yeah.
get it moving. You did get it shifting. You are the vision of what's possible.
Thank you. It took years. It was not overnight. Like it took
Yeah.
years.
I think that's part of it too, is I think that when we think of the wall thing, is it's like it's gonna be the big bang, right? Like you're looking for the
Yeah.
big bang or the quick fix that we've been so conditioned to believe in our culture is it. And the reality is that's not it. That's not
Right.
how it works. That it does take some time. It takes perseverance, it takes daily effort, and it takes allowing too. It's a surrender as well. It's both at the same time. And part of that surrender, in many ways, is the practice of gratitude.
Yes, it is surprising. And can we talk about gratitude?
Yes, please. That's why you're here. We're to talk about gratitude.
Gratitude is my jam. Okay. I was like everyone else. You read the articles and you're like, "Oh, start a gratitude journal, make a list of 3 things you're grateful for." And I always joke. Now back then I did not have a dog. I joke today that that list, it's like, "Oh, my house, my spouse, my kids, my dog, my house, my spouse, my kids, my dog." And that's just lather, rinse, repeat. Like making a list of 3 things you're grateful for is not gratitude. That's making a list of 3 things you're grateful for. That is not gratitude, my friends. Despite what everyone tells you, making a list is not gratitude. That is making a list. So let's talk about what gratitude really is. Can we do that?
Okay, I'm ready. Bring
So
it.
I'm gonna start with a story.
Okay.
When my ex and I were first married, I wanted to make macaroni and cheese, like old school macaroni and cheese, like the Southern style, the casserole that's just, like those women that bring it to the potlucks and you're like, oh my God, this is the best macaroni and cheese ever, right? Like you just want to eat an entire vat of it, right? That kind of macaroni and cheese. So I did the whole thing. I made it, get it out of the oven. We sit down at the table and we start eating it and we're like, something's wrong with this. And my ex looked at me and he goes, Holly, did you put cheese in this? And I was like, oh, like I did like all the shedding and all the everything. Like I did the whole preparation, but somehow the cheese never made it into the casserole. Okay. Making a list of 3 things, saying thank you, that is mac and, right? There's no cheese. The cheese in macaroni and cheese is what makes it so like the best comfort food on the planet. So that's what gratitude really is. Gratitude is not mac and. Gratitude is the ooey gooey cheese that's the comfort food that you just want to eat an entire vat of and just like stick your face in all of the ooey gooey dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin and endorphins and all of the good stuff and be like, yes, this is the best thing ever. That is gratitude.
Yeah. I love that story on many levels because I love a good story, but also because what that
And now
says
you're
to
hungry
me,
for macaroni and cheese.
actually, no, because I'm lactose intolerant. I haven't had macaroni and cheese in like 30 years.
I haven't had macaroni and cheese in forever because I can't. The
You know,
gluten free and the dairy free. And
although I
that.
hear there's a cashew version that I should try, but it's not
Yeah,
quite the same.
not
But
the same.
so I'm not hungry for mac and cheese. But what I am hungry for, that I did love, is your love that you put into it, right? The mac and cheese is only as good as the love of the kitchen that you put in, the love that you put into the making of it.
Yes.
That's part of the
Yes.
alchemical process of mac and cheese. We all know, like, those studies of the water that's been spoken to with
Yes.
loving, kind, beautiful, how it grows. Same with mac and cheese and same with gratitude. Like you're saying, you can make a list. And yes, do I recommend making a list? Absolutely. It's a start. If you're going to do
It's the
something,
start.
begin,
Yeah.
right? It's a start. But what is the energy behind what you're writing? What is
Right.
the energy behind it? Is what I believe, and you can say no, Nick, but what I believe you're getting at.
Absolutely. And it's not just the energy, it's the feeling.
Yeah.
It's the feeling. And that's the thing. Like the experts just drop, oh, make a list of 3 things you're grateful for. And they're so flippant about it. And then they just disappear. Like the article's over, the podcast is over. You're like, now what? It's not working. Like this is baloney pants. Okay. No, it's a feeling, right? You gotta feel it. You gotta express it. And then it's a daily practice. Like you don't brush your teeth once every 3 months and you're like, healthy gums, nailed it. You don't go to the gym, do 1 push up. You're like, toned arms, nailed it. No, it's a daily practice. Marathon runners, right, have days that they don't want to get up, but they still get up and run. Marathon runners have days that their running really sucks, but they still do it. That's the same with gratitude, right? I like to say, meet gratitude where gratitude is at and let gratitude meet you where you're at. Because there's going to be days where you're just going to be like, oh, I am so full of gratitude and life is good and all the good stuff. There's going to be days where like that crap sandwich is right in front of you and you're like, oh man, this day sucks, right? But here's the thing, it's easy to be happy and grateful and all the good things on those good days. But can you be grateful still on the bad days? Can you be grateful for it all? And that's the difference.
I love a good challenge. And in 2000, and I don't know, like 6, 5, I don't know. It's been many, many years, almost 20, when I started my journey as a yoga teacher. We were given the challenge of writing 3 things a day that you were grateful for. It's a typical sort of challenge. But of course, being the perfectionist overachiever that I am, I decided that it would be 3 new things every day for a year. And when I started it was like easy at first, right? And then it got really difficult. And then I went through this period of, well, I'm not feeling grateful today, as you say. And that, though, when you move through that, when I got to that point, when I was able to move through that, that's when the real magic began because I actually began to feel it then.
Yes.
And
And
it went
that's,
from that list to a feeling state of being.
yes. And when it is in that feeling state of being, it becomes your identity. It stops being something
Mm.
that you do and it starts being who you are.
Okay, for any naysayers out there, is there science behind gratitude?
Oh, just a little bit. Like there's thousands of studies. Let me just give you some of the quick hits. You gratitude, and I'm talking legit gratitude practice, consistent, exercise more, have lower blood pressure, less stress related illnesses, lower inflammation, less chronic disease, live longer. I think it's like 7 years to live longer, increase happiness, reduce anxiety, reduce depression, reduce PTSD. I mean, it's what happens is our brains, and I'm sure you've had experts on your show talk about this, but we have this neuroplasticity in our brains, and what we focus on. Like the whole manifestation thing, like what your
Right.
whole show's about. And when we focus on the negative, that's all we focus on. And our brain just creates this almost like a tether, right? Like just like this hold that I'm just going to hang on for dear life to all this negative stuff. And with the gratitude, it's just going to slowly, slowly, slowly take that away. And it's going to build up instead of on the negative side, it's now going to build up on the positive side. And you're just going to have this bouquet, right? The neuroplasticity in your brain is now just going to be this bouquet of love and happiness and kindness and compassion. And you just show up differently. You just show up like a completely different human being. And I kind of joke whenever we do like the what is it, the two truths and a lie or whatever, whenever we do that like
Yeah.
exercise or something like that, I always joke because my lie is I say I practice gratitude every day. And everyone's like, oh, you're like, do gratitude if you're a gratitude coach. Like, of course you practice, I was like, actually, no, because it's a part of who I am.
Yeah.
Right. It's not a physical thing that I do. It is a part of who I am.
Yeah. I think it's that idea of the practice is the tool.
Yeah.
Right? You
And you got to
practice and
practice to
practice and
get there.
practice to get
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
then once you get to there, to the new enlightened, dare I say, state of being, then you let go of the tool. A tool is only useful till it gets you to the state. And then when
Yeah.
you're in the state, you don't need it. Perhaps if you find yourself out of the state, you go back to the tool so that it can bring you back into the state of beingness.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing too, if we can flip this upside down, and I know your listeners are going to love this, is that most people also think that you're supposed to practice gratitude in the past. Like things that have happened to you that you're supposed to be grateful for. And you can do that. But future gratitudes is like where it gets really juicy because that's your manifestation state.
Yeah.
That's feeling it like it's happened.
Yeah. You're already thankful for what's happened. That isn't yet
Yes,
happened, but it's happened.
but it's happened.
Yeah.
And being in that state is like there's not like when I was going through my divorce, let's use that as an example, just this past year, I actually made a manifesto because I was like, you hear all of the anger and the bitterness and the like, people just lose their minds when they go through divorce. It's such an ugly period of time for most people. And I'm just like, I practice what I preach and I preach what I practice. I was like, and there's no reason to go through divorce in that state. Like that just felt really gross to me. So I knew that I was going to basically put gratitude to the test. And actually have a whole on my Gratitude Builds Fortitude podcast. I have a whole episode on my divorce story and putting gratitude to the test because it really was. But what happened was I made a manifesto and I was like, this is what it's going to look like. And that manifesto was all about my future gratitudes and how I am going to show up current and future, not just to get through the divorce, but for my own personal healing and for calling in a future partner at some point down the road when it's right. So this was all a part of part of what I did on a daily basis. And everyone was completely like, wait, really? Like they just couldn't grasp the fact, I mean, yeah, was it difficult? Yeah. Did I cry? Yeah. Were the emotions there? Yeah, absolutely. It's a divorce. Like there's loss, but there was so much. I had more love and happiness in my heart waking up every single day as I was going through my divorce than I had had in years.
Mm, I love that. I think often of healing, gratitude heals
Yes.
because, for instance, it's not a shock to anybody that's listened to this podcast, but I was abused as a kid, sexually abused. And I've come to this place of even having gratitude for my abuser. And that sounds really weird for people and really hard for them to understand. Am I grateful for what he did? No. Am I grateful for who I became because of what he did? Abso-friggin-lutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's changing the neuroplasticity in your brain from being tethered to the negative experience to now using that experience to create the amazing human being who you are
And helping others,
and helping others.
passing it on, because I'm a big, firm believer in passing on the gratitude.
Yes.
We do a challenge every year. For 7 years. I've done a gratitude challenge. And it's funny because is it a list? Yes, but it's all about this getting to that state as we talk about. That's the step. That's a step, right? It's a reminder every November. Yes, Thanksgiving month, gratitude month. There's a reason that we do this. What is Thanksgiving? It's to show gratitude for the harvest, for the harvest of the labor,
Yeah.
right? And so I do believe in passing it on. And the more that we pass that state of being on, it's contagious. You're
Yeah.
contagious. You're contagious, girl. You're contagious.
It's the ripple effect. Do we have time for a quick story?
Yeah, of course.
When my ex and I were driving across country, this was, I think, back in 2019, we were in the middle of nowhere. It's like Kansas or something. We had been driving for 12 hours. It's middle of summer, 90 degrees hot. We're exhausted. We get to the hotel and our room, number one, was not ready. Number two, by the time we got up to the room, the air conditioner was broken. And when I mean broken, like opening the door and that squish, squish, squish on a soaking wet carpeted floor kind of air conditioning broken. Like it was epically horrible hotel experience. And this was when my gratitude practice and meditation was still very young and growing. And I used to be the girl who got really triggered with poor customer service. I used to come unglued, this 5 foot nothing fiery redhead ginger snap, right? Like exorcist head spinning, split pea soup coming out of my mouth. It was not a pretty sight. And so I go down, and then they didn't even have any towels in the room either. So my ex grabs the, proverbial popcorn, not real popcorn, but he's like, "Oh, I'm going down for the show. Like this day, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, but the show is going to be worth it." So he follows me down just because, he was just ready for some, better than Netflix. And you want to know what I said to the guy at the front desk?
What'd you say?
When I asked if he had a towel or if he could get us into a different room or anything to make our situation better. He had said that I guess they had some kind of mutiny at the hotel and everyone left and the whole situation was just an absolute S show. And he was like, "I'm sorry, but this is the best I can do." And I said, "You know what? Thank you. We appreciate a room over our heads tonight. We've been driving for 12 hours. We're hot. We're tired. We're exhausted. We're going to figure it out and we're just going to go have a good night's sleep and finish driving tomorrow. So thank you for the room that we have." And my ex looked at me like, "Who are you and what did you do to my wife?" And I looked at me, I was like, who is this?
Yeah.
But here's the thing, that's when I realized that it's not an on-off switch, it is a dimmer switch.
Mm.
But at some point, as it's gradually changing the chemistry in your brain and you don't realize it, at some point it manifests itself. And it wasn't just for me, because guess what? I wasn't wound up. I got a good night's sleep because I was at peace. I wasn't all fired up and wound up and all into my emotions and my this is horrible and into that whole state that we go into. No, I was just calm and peaceful and I got to slept like a baby. And the ripple effect. This guy who had a horrible day, right? All the people yelling at him had someone be kind to him. Probably the
Yeah.
first and only kind thing that he heard that day. And he gets to take that nugget, and the next person that's mean to him for the whole situation, he gets to be kind to them too. So it is the ripple effect as well.
Beautiful story. So true. So true. So beautiful. Yeah. Okay. Are you ready to play the final three?
Ooh, okay.
Fast round.
Fast round.
Yeah. Fast round of questions. Are you ready? Here we go.
I'm ready.
Okay. First question. Who would you like to collaborate with that you haven't yet?
Ooh, that's easy. How Elrod?
Okay. Who is that?
How Elrod? Miracle Morning?
Oh, Miracle Morning. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Good one. Okay. Second question. What is your next great manifestation?
You want to see it?
Yeah. And I'll describe it since we're on,
Yeah. Oh,
on
it's
the
hard to see.
podcast.
Can you see it? It's me standing on a TED Talk stage.
It's you TED talking. Yeah.
It's me TED Talking. It is the home screen on my phone
I love that. I love that.
because it's already happened. So
Yeah.
I took a picture of it.
There you go. It's already happened. I love that. You're already grateful for it,
I
as you
am
say.
every day.
Yeah. Amazing. And then the final question is a fill in the blank. I am.
The first thing that came to mind was I am a miracle.
Beautiful. And I thought you were going to say I am grateful.
I don't know. I guess I was thinking about my mom, and my birthday was recently, and they told her that she was never going to bring me to term because of her illness. They always called me their miracle baby. So that's what came to mind.
I'm a miracle. I love
I
it. It
am.
doesn't. It is. It's whatever comes to mind. It's
Yeah.
perfect as it is. So you are a miracle, and thank you for being a miracle today for us on the podcast and sharing your story and your thoughts about gratitude. Anything that would make the conversation feel whole or complete for you that you want to add a final thought?
Oh, thank you so much, Nick, for having me on. And, really just if you're listening to this, just give yourself grace. And like I said, let gratitude meet you where you're at and meet gratitude where it's at. And it's just a beautiful co-passenger of your life to just help you become the best version of yourself.
Beautiful. Okay, I have one more question, and that is, where can everyone find you?
Oh, awesome. So the best place when you're finished listening to this episode is to head over to the Gratitude Builds Fortitude podcast on whatever platform you're listening to this on, and hop on a recent episode and start there. And then also I play on Instagram. So holly.bertone, and I handle all of my Instagram social media. So if you send me a DM, I will respond directly, and it's me. It's not a robot, and it's not my assistant.
Very good. Thank you so much again, Holly, for sharing your story.
Thank you, Nick.
I know you enjoyed today's podcast, so be sure to reach out to Holly on Instagram or to DM me at the Nick Timus with your big, fat, juicy takeaway. We would love to hear. And I will see you next time. Don't forget, leave us a review. 5 stars, please. 5 stars. Leave us a review, like, and share the episode with someone you're grateful for.